Brennan? Here. Case? Present. Cooper? Here. Craigo? Here. Crum? Here. Dockstetter? Here. Driscoll? French? Here. Guru? Here. Hicks? Here. Hutchings? Here. Ide? Here. Jones? Here. Cole? Present. Landon? Here. Larson? Here. McEwen? Here. Nethercott? Here. Olson? Here. Pappas? Here. Pearson? Here. Rothfuss? Here. Salazar? Here. Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Smith? Here. Steinmetz? Here. Driscoll?
Excused.
Excused. President Beitman?
Here.
Mr. President, 30 present, 1 excused.
Thank you, Ellen. Today's chaplain of the day, Pastor Jake Merriman from Cheyenne Evangelical Free Church, will lead us in the prayer.
Please join me in prayer. Lord of heaven, you work righteousness and justice for all who are oppressed. You are merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is your steadfast love towards those who fear you. You have established your throne in the heavens, and your kingdom rules over all. God, we know what virtue is because you tell us and you show us. We know what principles are worth standing up for because they are the values that you delight in. We love because you first loved us. Even the Wyoming virtues of truth, justice, courage, and hope that are enshrined in this very building trace themselves back to your nature and to what you have called good. A day is coming, Lord, when your rule will be visible and absolute, when your kingdom will fully come on earth as it is in heaven. Until that day, help us all to reflect who you are, your ways in the way that we live, and to be faithful with what you have put into our hands. I lift up again the men and women of this chamber, and I pray for wisdom for them to carry out the duties of their office. I thank you that you have called them to serve and that they have answered that call. Lord, you work righteousness and justice. Would you do so through this Senate? When their patience and strength are put to the test, give them an extra measure of clarity and resolve. When it is hard to find a way forward, light the way for them. Help them to walk in the virtues that come from you, and whatever challenges come, help these men and women to be equal to the task. We give you thanks and praise for all that you supply. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Senator Barlow, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this morning we have a special performance by Laramie High School's Chamber Orchestra. This group will be playing 3 pieces. They are directed by Jennifer Lyford. Fellow senators, please help me welcome these talented students to the Senate.
I'd like to thank you again for having us here, for inviting us. This is, I believe, my 6th year coming with the group. It might be almost 10 years since they've been coming. Somebody had a child in orchestra, and we got the benefits from it. So our first piece is going to be a waltz. It's called Waltz Number 2 from Suite for Variety Stage Orchestra. It's written by Dmitri Shostakovich, who was a Russian composer, and arranged by Paul Lavender. Shostakovich was regarded as one of the most influential Russian composers. He's more known for his symphonies and chamber music, and they can be very dark and somewhat ruminating. maybe would be a good word for it. I think that's why my teenagers like Shostakovich so much. They have that kind of going on in their lives sometimes. And although that most of his music has a very serious aspect to it, these have a little bit more of a lighter flair. It does sound a little serious at the beginning, but there is a very joyful moment in between the two minor keys. So we hope you enjoyed our first piece, Waltz Number 2 by Dmitri Shostakovich. All right, we have a wonderful group of students here, and as you notice, one of them is pinch hitting today. She's playing violin and viola. Shelby Cox was our viola soloist on that last one, and now she's switching to violin. We have a wonderful group of students of all the different grade levels at the high school. This is our top orchestra. We have 3 orchestras at Laramie High School, and this is the audition group. So we have some freshmen in our group. Raise your hand if you're a freshman. Raise it high, high and proud. There we go. Yes, it's hard to get into this group. And we have some sophomores. Where's our sophomores? Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, high and proud. And juniors? Yay. There you go, over there. Estella's our pianist over there. She's helping us with equipment today as we could not bring the piano. And we have a handful of seniors. Some of them, this is their 4th year attending this event. So who's our seniors? Yay. Our next piece is going to be a piece from The Suite from the Middle Ages by Glazunov. It's another Russian composer. It's called The Enchanted Castle. It's arranged for our string orchestra by a very well-known string pedagogue. His name was William Starr. We just love this piece, and we actually did it for our Halloween concert because, you know, princesses exist during Halloween too, especially if they're 10 and under. But anyway, we just love this piece. We hope that it maybe takes you to a faraway place. I know sometimes what you do here is a difficult job, so this might be a great time for you to close your eyes and just find that place wherever it is in your mind that you'd like to go. This is in The Enchanted Castle. We will actually play one more piece for you. We wanted to bring you back down to earth a little bit. This one will actually maybe bring you back to Wyoming. It's not necessarily a Wyoming song. It's just a folk tune. It's just a fiddle tune. But as we all know, folk tunes and fiddle tunes come from a variety of different backgrounds, and a lot of them trickled over to Wyoming from different cultures. This one's called Blackberry Blossom. It's arranged by Gary Gackstatter. It's going to be a fun piece for you. It'll wake you up, get you moving. And I do want to thank my wonderful musicians again. This is such a privilege for me to be able to be here with them and to present you this beautiful music. And just a reminder how important our public education is, and music in the schools and what it brings to them. Some of these kids are top scholars. They are going to go to, we've got some trustee scholarships. We've got some kids that go to Stanford, Princeton, Harvard, and lots that go to UW. A lot of them don't major in music. A lot of them are science kids, math kids, just in the humanities, everything. And they just love music. So thank you for letting them present their music to you today. We have 2 senior soloists in this one. Our fiddle players today are Padma Ramesh and Shelby Cox. This is Blackberry Blossom. Thank you so much. And as tradition has it, just stay standing. You might be needed for this next one. Thank you so much. Who knew that a bunch of fiddles could play Cowboy Joe? We hope you have a wonderful session today. We hope this has brought some life to you, some joy to you today. So thank you so much again for having us.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, orchestra. It's always the highlight of the session to have you guys come and play for us. You guys are amazing. So one more round of applause as they're walking out. Great. That is great. Oh. Well, let's do the reading, correction, and approval of journal. Will the reading clerk please read the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your journal committee reports that the journal of February 24 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Crum, Chairman.
Thank you, Brandy. Are there any objections? There being none, the report is adopted. There is no doctor of the day. Today in history, in 1862, the first legal tender act of 1862 is passed by the U.S. Congress, authorizing the United States note into circulation the first fiat paper money that was legal tender in America. And I'm looking at you, Senator Ide. A dark day in history for Senator Ide, for sure. It was downhill ever since. Fiat money. Well, quote for the day: every Tuesday is a new opportunity to rise above challenges. The dad joke of the day: what did the cereal bring to the bank? Checks. Checks. Announcements. Last day for bills reported out of committee is Thursday, and you should have received an email to sign up for your select and task force committee preferences. Please mark your first and second preference. They are due by noon tomorrow, Wednesday, February 26th. If you prefer a paper copy, you may get one from Kelly over here in the leadership office. And speaking of the leadership office, your pictures have arrived, so please pick up your order over in Kelly's office. All right, takes care of new business. Looks like we have some enrolled acts that need to be signed, so let's go ahead and sign some enrolled acts. Oh, we have a privilege of the floor first. Let's do Senator Smith.
Just real fast, I'd like to give a quick shout out to a good friend of mine in Great Wyomingite. His name is Ed Meyer. He's a retired colonel he served for 23 years and was also an Air Force Academy grad in the class of '89. And he lives in Wheatland, Wyoming, and just grateful to have him up here today. We just want to give him a shout out.
Stand up and be recognized. Thank you and welcome to the Senate. All right. Anybody else? Oh, Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Privilege of the floor.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to recognize the Wyoming chapters of Moms for Liberty present with us today. These dedicated parents from across our Senate districts, from the Bighorn Basin to the North Platte River Valley, represent thousands of Wyoming families committed to active participation in their children's education. These citizens exemplify our Wyoming values of civic engagement and dedication to educational excellence in our communities. I appreciate the opportunity to acknowledge their presence in our chamber today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Welcome to the Senate. Senator Cooper,
Thank you, Mr. President. Privilege of the floor, please.
floor is yours.
Just a little food for thought for all of us as we go through the next few days here. Price of oil today, West Texas Intermediate, it's a little over $68. That's down 20% from a year ago. What that puts Wyoming crude, most of it, at sub 60 today, which translates to about $1 a barrel. on our severance taxes, $100 million from where we were a year ago. So let's keep that in mind as we're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Senator Cooper. Okay. Any other privileges? All right, signing of enrolled acts. House Enrolled Act number 30.
House Enrolled Act number 30, being original House Bill 226, an act relating to motor vehicle license plates.
I'm about to sign House Enrolled Act number 30, being original House Bill 226. I have so signed. All right, messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, Mr. President, the following messages are dated February 24, 2025. Message number 356, concurrence passed. The House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 5, Fishing Outfitters and Guides Registration of Fishing Boats. Ayes 33, noes 22, excused 7. Message number 357, concurrence passed. The House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 97, Property Conveyances Near Critical Infrastructure. Ayes 58, excused 4. Message number 358, concurrence passed. Mr. President, House did concur on Senate amendments to House Bill number 116, Driver's Licenses, Unauthorized Alien Restrictions. Ayes 52, noes 6, excused 4. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. Messages from the Governor.
From the Office of the Governor, Mr. President, the following letters are dated February 24, 2025. To Honorable Bo Lightman, President, Wyoming Senate. RE regarding 2025 no signature of Senate Enrolled Act number 16, Senate File 120, Wyoming Prime Act, dispensing with further reading. From the Office of the Governor regarding 2025, no signature of Senate Enrolled Act number 13, Senate File 96, Wyoming Gold Act, dispensing with further reading. February 24, 2025, regarding no signature of Senate Enrolled Act number 20, Senate File 6, Residential Property Removal of Unlawful Occupant, dispensing with further reading. Signed, Mark Gordon, Governor.
Thank you, Randy. All right, concurrences, or receding therefrom. Senator Pappas, are you ready on message number, I don't have a message number, but looks like, oh yes, 327. Message number 327 regarding Senate File, it's like 33.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Joint Rule 2-4, I move that the Senate recede from its non-concurrence position on Senate File 33 engrossed, non-citizen driver's license and ID card revisions. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, we went and met with them. The only difference between our position and their position was one word, the word citizen. We wanted to save the real estate on the card for other purposes. We had testimony again this morning that they did find a new location on the back of the card where they could put non-US citizen in bold letters. So it will be most likely on the back of the card. The bill doesn't prescribe where, but typically on the front of the card, outside of the only thing on the front of the card that's not related to drivers' issues is the V for veterans. It's the only thing on the front of the card that is not driver license related. So back of the card, there's plenty of real estate. The committee thought that it was okay, go ahead, let's put the citizen. So we're asking to not concur. They did provide us, I can't put up I can't show you this, but I do have a copy. If anybody wants to come and look at it, what it would look like on the back of the card, you're welcome to come and look. But your joint conference committee was okay with the position that the House had by reinserting the word citizen. It brings it back to the original bill intent out of the committee. So I just ask for your vote to rescind our position.
Thank you. We didn't get a chance to get that read in, so Randy, could you read that in before we vote?
Message number 327, concurrence requested referencing Senate File 33, non-citizen driver's license and ID card revisions.
Okay, Senator Pappas.
Okay, I don't, do I have
Just,
to move?
no,
again?
just make your motion and
Okay.
then tell us how you want us to vote.
Yeah, so pursuant to Joint Rule 2-4, I move that the Senate rescind its position on non-concurrence on Senate File 33 engrossed. Non-citizen driver's license and ID card revisions, and I ask you to vote aye on the motion to rescind.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. The motion is that the Senate rescind from non-concurrence and vote aye on Senate File 33.
Receipt from non-concurrence vote, Senate File 33. Roll call, Anderson. Aye. Aye. Barlow. Aye. Boner. Aye. Brennan. No. Case. Aye. Cooper. No. Crago. Aye. Crum. Aye. Dockstetter. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. French. Aye. Garou. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings. Aye. Ide. Aye. Jones. Aye. Cole. Aye. Landon. Aye. Larson. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Olson. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Pearson. Aye. Rothfuss. No. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Smith. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. President Beitman.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 33, 28 aye, 3 no.
By your vote, you have receded from non-concurrence on Senate File 33. Introduction of House bills on first reading. House Bill 137, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 137, an act relating to the revision of statutes and other legislative enactments, sponsored by the Management Council. Passed the House, ayes 57, excused 5.
House Bill 137 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. All right, reports from standing committees.
Mr. President, the following reports are dated February 25, 2025. Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred House Bill 246 engrossed, Wyoming, Wednesday, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Anderson, Brennan, and Pappas. No, Senators Cooper and Cole. Senator Pappas, Chairman. Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom was referred House Bill 122 engrossed, Senior Citizen Service Districts, Authorization and Renewal. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Boner, Case, Dockstader, Landon, and Steinmetz. Senator Case, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, bills on second reading. House Bill 20, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 20, K-12 school facility leasing.
House Bill 20, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 36, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 36 engrossed, Hathaway Scholarship amendments.
House Bill 36, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 72, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 72 engrossed, Protecting Women's Privacy in Public Spaces Act.
Thank you. There is an amendment. Will the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 72, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 3, line 6, after.
Thank you. Senator Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 72. Ask for your favorable consideration. When we were working this bill on committee of the whole, I mentioned I'd bring an amendment to exempt out residences that are owned by the state or its political subdivisions. That's all this does, says that homes that are owned by the state and used by our folks are not subject to this particular statute. Stand for any questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Discussion on the amendment? Discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor, Senator Craigo's motion to adopt second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 72, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion has been adopted. We're back on the bill. There's a second amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in second reading amendment number 2?
House Bill 72, second reading amendment number 2 to engrossed copy, page 7 after line 21, insert.
Okay, Senator Larson.
Mr. President, thank you. I move second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill number 72 and ask for your favorable consideration. All this amendment does is when you have like a hockey team or something that comes over to like this hockey rink over here and is in town, it deals with when there's male and female sexes both in the changing room or restroom. So on the third line, this goes into the public facilities section, and it just says the coach and members of an athletic team or activity that includes members of both male and female sexes present in a changing area or restroom during an athletic activity in accordance with all these following things. The bill shall not apply to those situations. Does the same thing in educational facilities. So I'd ask for your favorable consideration and an aye vote.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Ralphus.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have some questions, and the concept here, I think, is trying to provide some exception language for what was a common situation, but I guess with regard to public accommodation and adults, I did get some constituent concerns raised where they have a co-ed team. The co-ed team commonly, without concern or without having to look around, all use the same locker room. They are adults. They understand how to behave as adults in a locker room and don't necessarily feel like they need a law telling them that they have to first look for an alternative locker room so that the men can separate from the women, even though they're all on the same team. This directs that they have to be fully clothed at all times. You can imagine people just taking shirts off, putting shirts back on, jerseys, and nobody really caring. I guess the question is this a little overly prescriptive and micromanagey when it comes to adults that can just act like adults and make their own decisions without having to check the law and make sure they're in the right bathroom at any given time?
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak before the sponsor? Any other questions? Senator Nethercott.
Never mind.
Oh. Okay, back to you, Senator Larson, for your second time.
Mr. President, I don't know how to answer that. I guess we could come back with a third reading amendment if there's something that you don't like, but I thought it kind of helped with when we have youngsters in there, you know, kids under 18. Obviously, I don't know what to say on adults.
Question. Okay, question being called. We're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 72. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. It sounds like the ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill, and now we have second reading amendment number 3. Will the reading clerk please read that amendment in?
House Bill 72, second reading amendment number 3 to engross copy, page 1 above line 1N.
Senator Crum.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a very straightforward amendment. What it does in the title of the bill right now is Protecting Women's Privacy in Public Spaces Act. What this bill does is protect everybody's rights in Public Spaces Act. So again, just what this amendment does is drop the word women, and it would be protecting privacy in public spaces. Very straightforward. You know, some ways I think with this title it may degrade women and just trying to make it like it's a women's bill. This makes it title what the bill really is. It's protecting public spaces for all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
you,
Senator.
I would move, I would move House Bill 72, second reading, third amendment. I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Thank you. It's been moved. Any discussion? Senator Scott.
Mr. President, the amendment is perfectly harmless. It doesn't do any good or make any difference at all. This is in not the title, but the catch title, and that has no legal significance. So vote it up, vote it down, doesn't make any difference. But I did want to be clear that the title is the first lines of the bill that come after the enacting clause, and this is the catch title and has no significance. Just how we identify things.
Thank you, Senator. Discussion on the amendment? Senator Hutchings.
Just a little pushback, Mr. President. This is a serious matter, and I know we were laughing about women at ball games. A lot more women than guys running to the restroom, and a woman may run into a guy's restroom to use it. She's not there to do any nefarious action or to cause any harm, just run in, do her business, and come out. But this bill is serious, and I think it does touch mainly on women and young girls, where we're seeing men come into the restroom. I went through this for years when I lived in a state out east where a gentleman, 6'5", maybe 200-300 pounds, would come in every morning and change his appearance every day. And that was a little hard for me to take, seeing him in there every day. And I think this is the kind of thing it's touching, not so much just someone running in and out of the bathroom. And I think guys don't really care as much as women do about their privacy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the amendment. It's an actual reflection of what the bill does, so it's truth to what the bill does and its application. So I think that's important. I support the bill. I support its efforts, despite my significant concerns with the legal ramifications and exposure on government entities. That's not on this amendment. But I can tell you that I am concerned with the catch title and its message to women. We are Wyoming women. We're likely armed. If not, you should assume so. We will protect all men and women in this state. We are not weak wallflowers. We have fought very hard for that here. We will protect men and women equally, including in the locker room and including in the bathroom. On and for the amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? All right, since you're ready for the question, all those in favor of second reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 72, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Sounds like the ayes have it. Second reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 72 has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Discussion on the bill. Yes, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, one of the amendments that we adopted earlier, the second reading amendment, or second reading amendment number 2, is actually, there is a pretty glaring, in the amendment it says, no, they are dressed, and in actually the definition of change areas, they are undressed. So I think there needs to be some more thought given to that, because we're creating an inconsistency within the statute itself between the definition of changing area. So the sponsors and some of the proponents would think about that. That'd be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. House Bill 72, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 94, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 94, Charter School Authorizations Amendments.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 94, second reading amendment number 1, page 1, line 1, delete.
Thank you. Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 94. I mentioned this yesterday when we first started talking about the charter school authorization bill, that I would probably bring an amendment. The bill basically just says that they would take the cap off. And so any number of schools out there could start the process. I don't think that we're going to see a lot, but just because of the funding issues that we're seeing right now with our budget and also in education, I wanted to kind of put something in there that might just give us a little bit of pause so that we can see how many districts would actually, or schools would actually want to go this route. From what I understand, again, the process is pretty tedious. It takes about 18 months to get a charter school authorized. But what this amendment does, it just basically says that we will insert any number of not more than 3, whereas before it just took the cap off, any number could, and now it just says not more than 3 schools could apply in a given year. I think what we'll see is what we're seeing in a few other states. It may be 1 or 2 a year, may only be 1. But by putting the cap, taking the cap off and putting this on, I think it kind of gives us a little bit of, it gives me a little bit of confidence that we're not going to do a lot of damage to our school foundation program. So that's the amendment, and it basically only goes until 2027. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, on and for the amendment, I think it's well thought out. I appreciate the Chairman of Education bringing this, and it fits right in, Mr. President, with actually with a topic that is going to be considered later this week on school facilities. Our select committee, pending approval by the Management Council, we intend to work diligently with the State Construction Department. They would like some guidance, and they really want to do a kind of a deep dive as to what do we have going on with our charter schools. So this amendment fits right into that effort. I think it's important that we carry that message. Whatever homework we do, we're going to bring it to our Appropriations Committee and to all of you, but it just really fits, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Brennan.
Sorry, Mr. President, thank you. Just want to make sure that we're on the right amendment, that I'm on the right amendment. Number 1. This amendment is a policy decision for the body, and this definitely helps us in moving charter schools in the right direction if we need this amendment. But I think we can consider just taking the cap off and letting supply and demand. We've heard that it takes a lot of work to start a charter school, that it takes a lot of time, that it takes a number of months. And I think the best thing for us to do is to be able to let the communities that want charter school to have the option to be able to have those charter schools, and for us to not put a number on those. So I would against this amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I realize we're venturing into territory that makes us a little nervous, but I don't think we need to be. I think we're going to find success with these charters eventually. I don't know that capping them is the right solution. I think the problems go beyond that. My charter that we're looking at, the discussion and the difficulty is, where do we place it in a community? The community is grateful for it, but where do we place it to get the most productive location of a school that ties in with the bigger picture, future zoning and all that goes with it? I think I got some hesitation on this. I think we're headed down the right road with these. We've got a charter board in place. This opens up new opportunities for our Wyoming community, so I'll be against the amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Landon.
Mr. President, my apologies to the body. I picked up the second amendment instead of the first one. Vote this one up or vote it down. And take my comments and place them on the second one, if you would, please. Thank you.
All right. Over to you, Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clarify, and the sponsor or someone else has worked this amendment in, it looks to me like this allows 3 and 3 for the next 2 succeeding years, or 3 years actually, so 9. I believe we have 4 that are currently authorized, so this is more than a significant increase. And it does not allow it to open, it does not open it up afterwards. Is that correct? So I just want to make sure. 3, 3, 3, and then open it up, or is it just 3, 3, 3, and then you have to revisit it? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Further discussion before the sponsor? Okay, back to you, Senator Schuler, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good questions. Yeah, basically what it does, it just offers the 3, 3, 3, and then after that, we could revisit it, and we could open up the cap or leave it as is. But I would assume that we would have a pretty good idea because we'd have some data. And what we've seen in other states, like I said, that have something similar to this is they thought there, and these were bigger states actually, and they thought there might be a real proliferation. What it ended up being about 1 to 2 schools per year that would apply. So I don't see this as being, I just don't think we're going to have 4, 5, or 6 charter schools all of a sudden apply each year. I just don't see that happening. It's such a tedious process. I don't see it. So I just think this kind of gives us a chance to get some data, kind of see, what's out there, how many districts or schools that might be interested, and give us a chance to kind of see what's working, and then we can come back and take a look at it in 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1, the House Bill 94. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. That amendment has failed. We're back on the bill. Second reading amendment number 2. Will the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 94, second reading amendment number 2, page 1, line 4, after.
Back to you, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 94. Basically, all this does is it requires an idea from our, basically it provides the Joint Education Committee, the Joint Appropriates Committee, and the Select Committee on School Facilities, a report that identifies the fiscal impact on the Public School Foundation Program and the Education Resource Block Grant model. Again, any charter school, what we've seen basically with our charter schools is they're actually spending a little bit more money than what we had anticipated. So this bill just basically gives us an idea to see what the fiscal impact is on the district and the school level, and identify the amounts that for facilities, for lease amounts, for expenditures and that sort of thing. And again, just kind of give our folks a little chance to kind of, again, get a little more data and see where we are with charter schools. And I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not necessarily on or opposed, but I'm getting the feeling kind of like we've got a steer out of the herd and we're driving over to the mountain. We're talking about impacts of charter schools and doing reports and talking about what the impacts are, but we don't talk about multiple school districts. I don't see us asking for that. Big districts versus little districts. And it's kind of interesting as we do these costs and we say, well, it's expensive. Well, folks, they're all small schools right now. All our small schools across the state, if you want to do a study on them, you're going to find that economies of scale lay in the big towns. They do a phenomenal job at educating at a very low cost because they've got an economy of scale. And I think I can hold up this and make a prediction to you. You're gonna find out they're expensive because they're small schools. And you're gonna say, oh my God, they're small school, or they're not small schools, they just cost a lot of money. And I find that really hard for me because we don't do this to our other small schools. We just say, we eat that higher cost. And I've looked at those numbers back when I was on facilities, and it's frightening what it costs when you get into one of the counties in the middle of the state, what it costs per student. And so, like I say, I'm not necessarily on or for, but I think it's gonna highlight something that's not very fair to the charter schools. And I tend to see this coming out over and over again is, how do we make them look bad as opposed to what we already have? And I think that's a bad path to put us on. Let's look at school choice as something that we all embrace and figure out how we fund it and do it for the kids, not for the cost.
Thank you. Let's go to Senator Olson next.
Thank you, Mr. President. So not necessarily strongly opposed, but just questioning the necessity of the amendment, Mr. President. Number one, we're gonna have a recalibration committee that's gonna study the entire block grant, which is going to include your charter schools. School facilities is already going to have the data for any leases on buildings that charter schools are occupying. So the data, those two data points, facilities and general expenditures, all of that data we're already going to have amongst the committees. Plus, it's my understanding that the Joint Education Committee is highly interested in studying charter schools throughout the interim, so we're already going to have that. It just seems like this report is adding one more administrative burden that may be unnecessary when all of it is already occurring. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Olson. Let's go to Senator Scott next.
Mr. President, I'll predict to you that the two major items that are going to be found in the cost area are going to be, you have to pay upfront a large chunk for working capital, because so much of our school system works on the school district pays and then gets reimbursed. And you have to have a working capital fund to do that. Second thing you're going to find, Mr. Chairman, is that there is some double counting, because the students that move from the public school system to the charter school system get counted with the charter school, and then with the 3-year rolling average, they get counted as if they were still back at the public school for a while. And so you do have a double counting there. And that's something maybe can be dealt with in the recalibration. I do think the facilities part is where there may be some interest and gain from this amendment. And the facilities are very much unique to each community. I know in our community, charter school started out in an old public school that had been thrown away. And there wasn't a big facility cost, but as they're outgrowing it, there will be. So, Mr. Chairman, that is something, and whether or not the amendment passes, the Management Council does need to see that some of these things are looked at, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. I appreciate the cautions by the senator from Devil's Tower. Personally, I hope that's not the case. I don't think that's what we're up to. The Wyoming Senate has risen up and supported school choice. We have supported these charter schools. We've got a good start, and we're rolling them out. What kind of impact they have in really small districts, I think that remains to be seen. Obviously, that puts different pressures on a small district than it does on a big district. It's a lot easier to stand up a charter school in this community than it is, for example, up in the northeast part of the state. But I think more information is always good, and it's always appropriate for us to look into all of this and make recommendations back to the Wyoming Senate. That's what we do during the interim. And as far as any gamesmanship, I don't see that in here. It's a report back to 3 of our most important committees, And I don't see any problem with that. Yeah, it's gonna cost us some extra money to stand up these charter schools, but we knew that going in, Mr. President. That's school choice, and that's a very appropriate place for us to go, I think, but I think we need to have our eyes open and know what we're looking at. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of in the camp with my colleague from Laramie County here. You know, when we specify all these reports, it's just a collection of existing information, and it puts a duty on the agencies and our staff to go out there and collect all this information, put it together and send it to a committee. And it's been my experience many times. We do or don't read those, but that information's available. There is a cost associated with every one of these. And the same time that we expect our state employees to be working on all these other things, they're compiling all these reports for the legislature. Sometimes I think we just get a little too overzealous with report, when the information is already out there and with the existing committees. So I do have some concerns with just another government mandate to something that I don't think in the end accomplishes all that much, because the information's already readily available.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. On for the amendment, I do think it would be useful. The idea, though, that this would be unique to charter schools, I'd just note that we have taken a deep and detailed look at small schools and how much extra those cost. And we did that proactively. We gathered all the data. We realized, Mr. President, that it costs an awful lot to have small schools. And then we made the choice to continue to have small schools. Mr. President, same thing with school districts. We have a school district that has, I believe, 83 students in it right now. We took a look at the costs associated with small school districts. We took a look at what the implications of policy would be to try and bring together some school districts, and ended up making a choice to maintain the current system. So I don't see this in any way as picking on charter schools. I really do see it as trying to gather information and try to understand what the costs are associated with charter schools. And candidly, Mr. President, as we look through recalibration, we'll probably find that in some ways we're underfunding charter schools. That's my expectation, because we require them to do a lot of the administrative responsibilities that a district typically does, and we don't necessarily provide full resources for those through the funding model. So my expectation would be that we end up underfunding in some ways, and we'll see that. The one concern I do have, and I hope we pass this because I think it's important for us to understand, data is a good thing, understanding is a good thing, and particularly it's thoughtful that there's a 5-year timeline on the reporting. So as we increase our statewide charters, we'll have an opportunity to see the effect on the budget for 5 years, and we'll have the right committees looking at that. But if the body does support this, I do think it would probably be better to task the Department of Education with the assistance of the authorizing board and School Facilities Commission instead of the authorizing board. The authorizing board is volunteer group at this point, and they may or may not have one FTE at that point when they're trying to do this report. So just for the sake of ensuring that the agency has the work capacity to get the job done, has the data to get the job done, I think it's more appropriate that way. So if this does move forward, perhaps we can bring a third reading amendment if that's appropriate with the sponsor to switch that responsibility so that we have an agency that has the work capacity to get the report done. But on for the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Anybody else before the sponsor? Goes for her second time. All right, over to you, Senator Schuler, for your second.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to tie this up, yeah, I think the good senator from Allen County hit the nail on the head. All we really want to see is get some data so that we're not becoming reactive, we're becoming proactive, so we can see what's really going on. We did hear from one of our charter school principals here in this community that she felt like they were being underfunded. And we kept saying, well, it's a public school, it shouldn't be. So that's what we want to find out. And I think, you know, again, the fiscal impacts, we need to know what are we missing here? What are the charter schools not getting that the public schools are getting? That's all this asks for. I don't think it's anything onerous. But again, I would be happy to bring a second reading amendment also to tag on to the concerns that the good senator had. So with that, happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. We're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 94. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment has failed. Back on the bill. Discussion on the bill. Discussion on the bill. House Bill 94 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 103, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 103, columbarium regulation.
House Bill 103 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 117, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 117, engrossed, omnibus water bill construction.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 117, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 4 after line 13, insert.
Senator Larson.
Mr. President, thank you. I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 117, and ask for your favorable consideration. Body, this brings back the cloud seeding. I know this is a hot topic. This amendment would bring back just the ground-based portion. The cost would be, as you can see on line 31, $322,000. The lower Colorado River Basin states would bring $500,000 to the project. There are some local entities that bring a little bit more dollars to help out. Hopefully you'll agree this is important. I think in our Colorado River negotiations, this is vital. Our other Colorado River states are relying on us to do our part. They're providing 2/3 of the funds for this. Currently, we're in the last year of a 10-year agreement to do this, and I think when we go down and negotiate policy on how the river's going to run in these trying times with low moisture, having us drop out of an agreement doesn't look good. So I would ask for your favorable vote of an aye vote.
Thank you. Let's go to the co-chairman of the Cloud Seeding Skeptic Caucus, Senator Ide there.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm still a member of the skeptic club of the cloud seeding from last couple of years. I think this is what you do when you have too much money and you're not really looking at the results and measurements, and we're just spending money to try to figure out whether it works or not. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ide. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. On and for the amendment. I've, I guess, been adversarial to the aerial cloud seeding for a long time, but this is just ground-based, and I think it does help us out in our part of the state, which we are concerned about water, and we all should be in the Green Rivers. So on and for the amendment.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I want to rise to ask the members of the body who know more about this than I do, what's the evidence, what's the state of current evidence that this does any good? I can remember discussions in previous years that questioned the validity of this and said that if it did any good, it did very little. So I don't know how our knowledge has progressed in recent years. So I want to see, before I vote for something like this, enough money. We will have a roll call, I suppose. I do want to see some evidence that it's really going to do some good.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Smith.
Question to the bringer of the amendment. When he speaks, what is ground-based cloud seeding? It just seems a little bit oxymoronic, the wording.
Okay, Senator Hicks, did you wish to speak? Okay, we'll yield to Senator Jones.
On and for this amendment, we've talked about the upcoming possibilities of curtailment on the Colorado River, and I think that this is a good compromise. There was two options originally. This leaves the ground-based seating. On and for this amendment.
Thank you. Over to you, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, as somebody that has been here for over a decade now and has these in my area and actually been one of the opponents to this historically and still not an enthusiastic supporter. To answer my colleague's question, so based on the science that we did with research with NCAR and the University of Wyoming, it shows under the right conditions that, and particularly actually the air-based cloud seeding has a little bit better effectuation, actually results associated with it, because you can get right in those clouds at the right time. The ground-based generators and the stuff that the research that came out of there is under the right events, it can, and on occasionally does, increase snowpack, but we're talking usually less than 6%. And the question becomes then is, and we've actually run the economics on this, so you take that under a normal situation, you average that out over a period of years, and you say it's maybe a 5 or a 3% increase in snowpack. The question then becomes is, does it get to where it needed? That's a whole other question that we have not answered. That if we increase that, does it then get anywhere? Just because you've increased the snowpack doesn't necessarily going to mean to appoint a diversion for either a municipality or an irrigation district. We don't know that it ever makes it there. It comes off at the exact same time of the peak of the hydrograph. So you see this little bump up in the hydrograph. So one of the flaws with cloud seeding is if you do not have a reservoir to capture that, it's just gone. In most of these areas, we do have a number of reservoirs that could do that. The really question comes down is at what cost? And the economics that have been run, these are not my numbers, but were run by the university working with some of the other science, that the average cost of this water is somewhere between $35 to $45 an acre foot. And so you can just go ask what your irrigation districts or your municipalities are paying for that and figure out whether it's cost efficient. The biggest unresolved question is does it ever get to where we need the water? And so that's part of the reason I've not been a fan in the past of the cloud seeding program. I do think it shows the very, very small. So if you look at the entire Colorado River Basin, it was like 5,000 to 6,000 acre feet on one of the years that they study. Keep in mind, we're probably looking at a much, much bigger thing if we ever get into a curtailment, and that's the entire basin. So does it work? Yeah, maybe about that much. Do you get water to where you're needed? Doubtful, in my opinion, unless you're the first guy on the stream, which you have the first water right or high already anyway. So it does have some utility because there is some other areas that are paying for part of the cost associated with it. So the state's not burdening with the entire cost. It's a policy issue. Vote it up, vote it down. In the big picture, I don't think it does that much, but if people think that it's a goodwill gesture to show the lower basin states that we're really trying to do something, then this program probably does that.
Senator Landon.
Well, Mr. President, one final thought in this regard, and I've enjoyed about 19 of these debates on cloud seeding. It's always a joy, and I do appreciate the knowledge of my good friend from Carbon County. That helps. But the tiebreaker for me, folks, after the summer that we had, it just feels like we ought to do everything we can. All I would say is This is the cost of less than one fire right here. So for me, that's the tiebreaker. I'm willing to try and do all we can on the waterfront, so I'll be on and for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, anybody else before the sponsor? Back to you, Senator Larson, for your second.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good discussion. I did put out a handout on, kind of gives you a picture of what a ground-based unit looks like. It has a propane tank there, and then it just lights up when it's time to, the conditions are right, and fires up, and then puts in silver iodide out there in the atmosphere and tries to produce some particles to make snow. But as you can see from the other section of that handout on the map, those little red triangles are where ground-based units are, and you can see Colorado's definitely invested, and so is Utah in ground-based cloud seeding, and I think Wyoming should fulfill our agreement for at least the one more year, and we should vote for this.
Okay, we're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 117. It involves an appropriation, so the chief clerk will please call the roll.
Second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 117. Roll call. Anderson? Barlow? Aye. Boner? No. No. Brennan? No. No. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Crago? Aye. Crum? No. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? No. No. French? No. No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. No. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Jones? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? No. No. Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? No. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. No. Smith? No. Steinmetz? No. President Biteman?
No.
No. Giroux, no to aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. On the amendment, 15 aye, 16 no.
Second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 117 has failed. We are on second reading amendment number 2. Will the reading clerk please read it in?
House Bill 117, second reading amendment number 2 to engross copy, page 47, line 21, delete.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd move second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 117 and ask for your favorable consideration. Fellow senators, after the long debate yesterday, the good senators who brought the amendment said that they wouldn't mind going back to the 2026 date for the project, and so that's all this does on the Alkali Creek project. It would set the date at 2026 rather than 2029. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment? Discussion? Seeing none, we're voting on second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 117. All those in favor, please vote, or please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Discussion on the bill, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, there was a request for more information. It's in your inbox regarding the LaPrelle Dam and Goshen Irrigation Tunnels. It's in your inbox. If you have any further questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on the bill, Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I refer you to that information thanks to the colleague from Goshen County. But just to state publicly, the federal funds are ready to go for La Perrelle. I know there's some question as to whether they were being held back, but they are not, and that's the most up-to-date information. So no encumbrances upon those federal funds.
Thank you. Further discussion. Senator Case.
Mr. President, thank you very much. So I have some basic questions like how many irrigators does this actually benefit? So what's the cost per irrigator? I'd like to know that, Mr. President.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Boner.
Okay. Assuming that it's a reference to La Perrelle, though it wasn't clear from the speaker, 104 shareholders. Obviously, there's more than one person per shareholder. These are often family businesses. So 11,462 acres for La Perrelle. It's 20,000 acre feet worth of storage, which we are currently losing. And so everything's staying the same. Nothing's changing with the new dam, with the new construction. And so, I mean, we can all do the math there. I wasn't able to pull that information out quite so quickly. But once again, this is a 50-year time frame that we're talking about. So those, those dollars can be spread out over a 50-year period. There's benefits not just to the producers, but to our wildlife. And of course, there's secondary and tertiary effects of having that increased economic activity throughout the state of Wyoming, not just central Wyoming.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have the number of irrigators for Goshen Irrigation District. I can tell you it's one of the largest irrigation districts. That's 110,000 acres in Wyoming and Nebraska. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Case.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I don't know if this dam serves the entirety of that district. I don't know if it used to serve a lot of people and there's been consolidation in the farms and ranches. I'd just like to know actually how many families that own property will benefit by the rehabilitation replacement of La Perrelle Dam. I'd really like to know that. And if I heard the good senator from Converse County tell you the truth, it kind of was a mumbly kind of presentation. I'd like to maybe get a sheet of paper that says how many irrigators, how many acres, how much it's going to cost. I'd like to see that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so let's go, Senator Steinmetz, you've already gone for your second time. We'll go over to Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. Just to kind of tag on for a moment, I forgot to ask this on first reading, and I apologize for that. I'm intrigued by the conversation that I've heard from a distance about perhaps providing some of that public access. If we're going to put this kind of investment of state dollars in there, I just wonder, and maybe along the way we can visit about that and whether or not it was discussed in committee. That intrigues me a little bit, and it also gives me the ability back home to, justify the kind of expenditure that this is gonna be. So, thank you.
All right, we can continue the dam debate on third reading. Yeah, you saw that? Okay. House Bill 117 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 125, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 125, repeal unauthorized use of vehicle crime.
House Bill 125 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 129, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 129, school finance dates for fund transfers.
House Bill 129 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 188, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 188, two families, one nanny.
House Bill 188 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 211, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 211 engrossed, hunting wildlife from vehicles.
House Bill 211, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 275, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 275 engrossed, treatment of animals.
There is an amendment. Would the reading clerk please read in the amendment?
House Bill 275, second reading amendment number 1 to engrossed copy, page 7, line 15 after.
Thank you. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 275 and ask for your favorable consideration. This amendment merely excludes aircraft explicitly within this piece of legislation. You know, it's based around other items like the snow machines and other things that are much closer to the said animal we're trying to talk about. Aircraft are, of course, not on the ground. They're quite far above the ground and have difficulty getting on the ground. So I wanted to make it clear that we wouldn't have any nefarious actors claim that the aircraft should be impounded. That's why I brought this amendment, and I'd ask for your aye vote in favorable consideration. Thank you, Mr. President. Stand for questions.
Thank you. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you, and I do appreciate the bringer of the amendment coming to me with this suggestion. I would ask that you probably vote against it, even though I don't think the amendment does much harm to the bill. It frankly just isn't necessary, Mr. President. Keep in mind, this is an intent crime that we're talking about. You have to intentionally and purposefully torture Wyoming's wildlife to be arrested for such a thing. And, you know, when you're involved in a predator management program from the air, there just is no possession possible that you might intentionally torture that animal. So our ag groups are on board with this bill. They have no problems with it and are supportive. And as I said, I'm not sure that this does any harm, but it really is not necessary to the bill. Let's keep in mind that this is an intent crime, and you cannot commit the crime if you're up in an airplane as part of a predator management program. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Discussion on the amendment. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Second
President.
time.
To be clear, that's my reason for bringing this, is the torture aspect. I think you could easily make an argument that you've tortured said animal because of a shot that maybe, you know, with the intention of cleanly killing the animal does not do that. And then the animal runs away somewhere, and I'm afraid an animal rights group could easily say, you have tortured that animal. So I just think it adds a little bit of clarity. It makes it clear that aircraft are exempt. Ask for your aye vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 275. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Chairs in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. Okay. 14. All those opposed? $16. The amendment has failed. We're back on the bill. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you, and my apologies to the good senator from Kemmerer Country. I did not get an opportunity to answer a question that was posed yesterday in the debate on the bill. There was a question regarding forfeiture, and that's actually in a couple other spots in our statutes, particularly in the game and fish statutes, Mr. President, including, and it really relates to, I won't give you the numbers, but commonly called the winter range statute. which prohibits killing trophy animals out of season, and then the wanton destruction of big game or trophy animals section of our law. So this is right in line with those two penalties. And if somebody was to be arrested on this front, it's a permissive statute for the courts to decide. But yeah, you could lose something that helped you to do what this bill describes. So I hope that answers the question. This would create the third section of statutes whereby the courts could force you to forfeit either a gun or equipment or something in that neighborhood. I hope that helps, Mr. President, and we actually visited about one of the other questions, and the good senator from Sweetwater County brought the amendment, so hope that clarifies a couple of things on the bill.
Thank you. Discussion on the bill? Okay. House Bill 275, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 289, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal 3.
Senator Scott.
Mr. President, raised some questions about the financial implications of this bill with regard to our Medicaid program, and I spent the past couple of days trying to figure out what those really are, and I passed out to the Senate a handout that has a couple of my sources of information, some of them from our own fiscal people on what's going on, and a page out of the on long-term care out of the department's fiscal book, and tried to summarize it. It is more than a little complicated, Mr. President, and the estimates of what the effects are fairly wide, but they're significant. Key point in it is that what we're paying now directly for Medicaid residents is a bit over $53,000 a year nursing home. The cost of serving them is $79,000. So there is about a $25,000 discrepancy in there where the cost is being picked up by others. That's divided between the people that are private pay in the nursing homes, paying a cost shift, and that's pretty standard. You see that throughout the government health programs. And in this case, we've got an upper payment limits program with a provider assessment that effectively gets some more federal match, and that makes up about half the contribution, and there's twice as many people, a little over twice as many people on Medicaid as there are private pay. And so when you look at all that, I think what's going to happen with this bill, Mr. President, is there'll be construction of a number of new nursing homes, which will be much nicer, better staffed, and will say they will not accept Medicaid people. And that means they won't have to pay that cost shift, which comes out in the vicinity of $25,000 a person. So that makes them should be able to have the charge for private pay that is close to or a little less than what's there now. And that will deprive us of that Medicaid cost shift in part, and that will grow as the nursing homes expand. So I did a low estimate that we'd replace half the Medicaid cost shift, about $23 million a year, and it's half state, half federal, so $23 million general fund to biennium there. I think there'll be some increase in the number of nursing home residents, 10% of the potential eligible Medicaid population, and that gives you then a further cost there. So low estimate of 59 million impact on the general fund. Mr. President, a high-end estimate at replacing all the Medicaid cost shift, which I don't think would ever quite happen, and a 20% increase on the proportion of the Medicaid populations in nursing home, be 119 million. So somewhere between those figures, and it's my guess, Mr. President, that it will take 2 or 3 biennium before the full amount's realized, maybe even 4, because it will take some time, because you have to have the construction in place before it starts. So that gives us some feel of what's going on. There's some benefits to this bill. It will lead to some construction of new nursing homes that will be a lot nicer, and may even be a little less expensive for the wealthier end of the population. But we will have to make up the difference for the other nursing homes, because we have to have that part of the Medicaid program, and it's how most of the middle class goes to the nursing home in our system. So, Mr. President, that's just a very quick summary. I'd be happy to go over any individuals that want to talk privately to understand the calculations better, but I think that gives us some range of the eventual, and emphasize eventual, cost of this bill to the Medicaid program. And again, part of the problem here is this is not a free enterprise system. This is a system where the majority of the people involved are spending not their own money, but government money, and that changes the calculus as to how they'll behave significantly, Mr. President. So that's the quick summary. Be happy to answer further questions, either directly or privately if people approach me.
Thank you. Senator Crum.
Mr. President, I agree with the numbers that our good senator from Bates Creek had, and I appreciate him sharing those numbers with me as we've gone through this. So here's some basic facts. The cost per person that's Medicare reimbursed is about $53,000 a year. The cost to keep them in the facility, according to the numbers from the health department, is about $72,000. So about $19,000 plus or minus a little difference there. So we agree on that, but that's a problem all into itself. That's our Medicaid reimbursement that we probably as a body need to have a conversation about on this. But what this bill, let's don't forget what this bill does. This bill is ending a monopoly. Basically, we've got monopolies out there right now due to the protection of the certificate of need that don't allow competition. Where we have competition in our state, in the 2 big C towns, right? We're in one and one in the center part of the state. Those nursing homes are full, they're vibrant, they built new nursing homes, and guess what? All those nursing homes have people that are paying and people on Medicaid. Nobody's been thrown out, nobody's been abandoned and said you can't come here. You know, the facts of a person that usually goes in a nursing home, a lot of them, is they go in on Medicare. They're older, so they got Medicare. Medicare pays for about 90 days through a rehab thing. And then you go to your private pay. And that's either using your own assets or you've got an insurance policy that pays for a while. If you're in there long enough, you run out of those funds and you go on to Medicaid. And that's where the difference comes in, which is a whole different topic about we're paying 53, it costs 74 or whatever the number was, 72. So that's a whole nother topic. So what this does is get rid of the monopoly, allows for competition. Competition does allow, as our good senator from Bates Creek said, better nursing homes, better care. And there's nothing wrong with competition. Hopefully the existing nursing homes step up and get better along the way as well. And so this is a very straightforward bill, not to get confused with a whole bunch of numbers and try to make it complicated, because that's a different issue. This is about ending a monopoly and allowing free markets to take place. Where it has in our 2 big communities, it's worked pretty well. and nobody's got thrown out on the street. So I would urge a yes vote on this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask myself, why do these nursing homes want to build and create competition without Medicaid funding? There are reasons for that. I would ask you to do your research on that. I'm for this bill for those reasons. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the bill, Mr. President, back in 1974, the federal government required these certificates of needs for hospitals and all kinds of healthcare programs and for healthcare funding for states. They soon realized that this was a mistake. So they repealed this stuff by 1986. In 1989, Wyoming repealed everything except this little part of the statute. And back in 1889, I'll remind the body I was a child. And it's time that we take this one last old thing off of the books. People wonder, well, why should there or shouldn't there be competition in nursing homes? Competition is good for everyone. It's okay to have competition. Competition sometimes lowers our prices on things. It's okay to have competition. And Mr. President, we talked about Medicaid and Medicare, which is how these are often funded. But I'll remind the body that healthcare is not reimbursed 100% by these two things. Could there be a nursing home that comes in and says, well, we'll only be private pay? Yeah, that's possible. Will they put the other nursing homes out of business? Only if the care in those nursing homes aren't good. Mr. President, I believe that this is an important piece of legislation that we can pass today. We can get something repealed that's been on the books for a long time, that is no longer needed, that opens up the ability for communities and people across the state to have care in nursing homes that they need. And I'll just remind the body that we know that the average age in the state of Wyoming is not coming down, it's getting larger. And so let's do what we can to have quality places where people in Wyoming can get care. Thank you.
Okay, House Bill 289 having not been read two separate times. Senator Scott, for your second time.
Yes. Mr. President, I was involved in that repeal of the certificate of need back in the 1989. And we repealed almost everything, Mr. President, except this formula. And we kept the formula because it was working. We repealed the rest of it because it didn't work. It just added expense. And I think you can, this bill, I think will induce some new construction. It's intended that way. It'll make it possible. And when you look at the economics of it, Mr. President, I think it's very clear that the way to profitability here is to refuse Medicaid if you've got a big enough market. Something our current nursing homes, they grew up with Medicaid and have had it all along. But I think it pays you to not have it. And then the remaining nursing homes, they're still functioning. We still need them for the Medicaid people. But we've then got to pay what has been paid by the cost shift. And that's what I'm trying to estimate, along with, I think there will be with some new construction, I think there will be some expansion. So we have to look, Mr. President, the existing nursing homes that lose their non-Medicaid patients, because it will be nicer and better to go to the new one. They can't function with the current Medicaid reimbursement. We're going to have to increase that reimbursement, or we're going to do without, and we cannot afford to do without. We're obliged to take care of those people. And it's enough of the population that they would have strong effects on the membership of this body if we didn't take care of them. So we've got to look at what the costs will be. You know, it'll be a benefit to have those new nursing homes. But, and I won't be here when you have to run the rates up to pay for this. I may be out in the state paying the taxes that will result. But understand that there will be quite a cost to that, Mr. Vice President, and everybody's going to have to make up their own mind on whether that's worth it or not.
Any other discussion? Question being called. It's a roll. House Bill 289, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Heard no objection, it is so ordered. Senator Dockstader.
Gotten permission to step in front of the floor leader on this. Could I have privilege of the floor?
Privilege of the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'd like to introduce the Senate to a group of people who've braved the 50-mile-an-hour crosswinds to come all the way from the far west. A group of finely dressed, above average students from the Star Valley Middle School Government Council class. Would you please stand and be recognized by the Senate?
Mr. Vice President, I move that we stand recessed until 2:45 p.m. Senators, at 2 o'clock, we will caucus in room W110 or 113, whichever is available. But we will come back for third reading at 2:45 p.m.
Okay. Any announcements? Senator Case.
Mr. President, thank you very much. You know, your committee number 7 corporations has kind of a light load coming up on tomorrow, so we'll probably start early just to have some extra time, maybe 7 o'clock. And we're going to take up House Bill 176, engross vacancies in public office amendments, House Bill 190, engross bond election language process, House Bill 249, runoff elections, House Bill 206, elections acceptable, identification revisions 2, House Bill 228, prohibition on private funds for conducting elections, House Bill 318, engross maintenance of voter list, House Bill 337, engross prohibiting foreign funding of ballot measures, and we'll continue upon adjournment if necessary.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your number 3 committee, Revenue, will meet tomorrow at noon recess to discuss House Bill 279, property tax exemption, order of application, and House Bill 165, ranked choice voting prohibitions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. Just a quick reminder that your Travel, Recreation, and Wildlife Committee will meet with counterparts from down the hall noon tomorrow in the Supreme Court chamber to discuss interim topics. And Mr. President, I wanted to remind everyone that there is a reception down in the Capitol Extension tonight from 6 to 7:30. And some 49 photographers, most of whom who live in Wyoming and the surrounding region, which were selected by the Capitol Interpretive Wayfinding Committee to celebrate Wyoming's landscapes and the wildlife, and they're all going to be down there. And so really kind of a nice reception in the Capitol Gallery down there to meet with some of those photographers. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Olson.
Judiciary will meet 12:15 in W002 to consider two bills, House Bill 171, Sexual Exploitation of Children Amendments, and House Bill 227, Executive Order Time Limitations.
Thank you. Senator Steinmetz, we'll go over to you next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Joint Conference Committee on Senate File 84, which is Country of Origin Label USA Beef, will meet today at 2/25/25 at 5:30 PM in room 110.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President.
Mr. President, the Senate Appropriations Committee meeting will start at 12:30. We'll be in room 113. We'll be dealing with House Bill 270, Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, House 271, Common School Account Spending Policy, House Bill 293, repealing the School Foundation Program Reserve Account, House Bill 294, Federal Mineral Royalties Distribution Amendments, and then re-referrals as assigned, House Bill 47, Secretary of State Expedited Filings, and House Bill 219, County and Municipal Roads on State Lands Easement Granted.
Thank you. Any further announcements? You've all heard the majority of floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate will stand recessed until 2:45 PM.